Welcome to NBA Top Shot Weekly. I am Alex Kennedy, joined as always by Oliver Maroney. Oliver, what's up, man? How you doing?
Let's go. Pumped. Top Shot is a fun place right now, and there's lots going on, and I'm excited to talk about that. Plus, the NBA has like a bajillion different things going on. I can't even keep track. My Twitter feed is just like boom, 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 boom. I get notifications of every single reporter. I'm happy. This is a good time of the year where you hear all like the rumblings and rumors, plus the news, plus the playoffs are going on. It's like this may end up being like one of the more exciting NBA summers. It feels like.
Yeah, so we moved this week's episode because we didn't want to compete with the playoff games, and there's so many things happening right now. So we have a crazy 72 hours in the NBA where you had a big trade. Usually we don't even see trades during the playoffs and before the combine, but you had a big trade. You had multiple coaches and GMs losing their jobs. You had multiple star players that are going to be out indefinitely. There were just so many things going on. So we're going to talk a lot of NBA today. We're also going to get into Top Shot. There's plenty of things going on in the Top Shot world. There's plenty of things to discuss. But let's start with the Kemba Walker trade because I think this was kind of surprising. We knew that Kemba Walker was likely available and was probably going to be moved this offseason, but the Celtics and Brad Stevens wasted no time at all. They traded Kemba, the number 16 overall pick in this year's draft, in a 2025 second rounder to the Thunder for Al Horford, Moses Brown, and a 2023 second round pick. So right off the bat, my first reaction, I was surprised that Boston did this now. I thought they would wait until after the combine, after the offseason, and kind of have some more conversations with teams to see whether offers were out there. I know the big thing for them was being able to clear the cap room, they had basically attached the first round pick to Kemba's contract so they can move off that $73 million. That was one thing that Woj put out there right after the deal happened. So they get rid of $73 million over the next 2 years. And they know Horford. He's been great in their locker room. They've had experience with him, so they know what they're getting in Horford. Moses Brown was someone, a 7'2" center, 21 years old, who kind of showed what he could do with OKC, especially in the second half of the season. He's very raw still and needs a lot of work, but a lot of upside there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. It really comes down to what Boston can get with that cap room. I think that was the big thing. This was definitely a financially motivated move for them. And then for the Thunder, they just have so many picks. Whenever they acquired Horford, I know the joke was, oh, well, there's no way they're going to be able to get something back for Horford. He's a bad contract, blah, blah, blah. They end up getting not only a second-round pick, but the number 16 overall pick in this year's draft. They could have as many as 3 first-round picks in this year's draft. I think they will have 3. It just depends on the order. So Sam Presti's doing an amazing job. At some point, they can't use all these picks. They're going to have to package some and move up or, use some of them in different trades. But I think OKC's doing an amazing job with this rebuild. What were your thoughts when you saw the news?
Yeah, I mean, you know what it feels like? It feels like Al Horford is like, it seems like Brad Stevens went out and wanted to get Al Horford. It actually feels like that's more of the move on the Boston side. Like, it really does feel like we made a mistake. Al, we want to make it up to you. How do we get you back? That's kind of what my first opinion of was it of how the trade went down. But then you think of like the Kemba Walker situation, and obviously they need to get off the contract. But like I said, I think the more motivating factor and what's so strange about this is that I do think that Boston missed Al Horford. And it does feel like that was a piece that, like, when he left, there was a lot of things that started to transpire in Boston after he did. So maybe this is kind of like the glue guy of the Celtics. Maybe they see him as one of those pieces, and that's why they went after him more so than getting off of Kemba's contract. And even so, great trade for Oklahoma City. I don't know if it's an amazing trade for the Celtics. It feels like they're giving up a lot to get Al back, and I don't know like the extent of it, but Oklahoma City now has Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, a bunch of other young pieces. I mean, like, you name, like, even Terrence Ferguson, super young. You have some of the other guys that are on their team that have done really well. Darius Baisley, who knows how he kind of like performs, but they have a lot of young pieces already. And then you throw in all these draft picks that they could potentially have. This almost signals to me like there's 2 ways Oklahoma City can go about this. They can trade those 3 picks or 2 picks or whatever the case may be and like move up in the draft to get like a premier draft prospect, maybe a Cade Cunningham or someone like that. That could really change their organization for the future. Or like there's a lot of players, it feels like, that are going to be on the market this summer. Like they could make splashes. They could trade a couple of first round picks and package them with a young piece or player to get an all-star caliber guy. And I think what's great about it is they have flexibility to do either one. They have Presti's, like, Presti doesn't feel like he's a GM who's like sticking with a specific group or a specific guy. He feels like he's just making decisions based on purely it's almost like it's like purely plus EV or minus EV for his team, you know, like when we talk about packs and stuff. I know it sounds horrible, but like it feels like Sam Presti put himself in a position to make whatever positive decision he can make. And now he has the cards. He's in control. Teams know that. They have the most out of any team in the NBA that can offer like a really, really good trade package, in my opinion. And so they have all the leverage. And I think that's what Presti probably is looking for out of this, and what feels like Oklahoma City's just done an amazing job with.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're Presti, you know, okay, we're in Oklahoma City. We're not going to attract free agents. So our only way of landing star players is going to be through the draft and through trades. So, and if anyone's going to make the most of having all these draft picks, it's someone like Presti, who we've seen has drafted Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Serge Ibaka. I mean, he's drafted so many great players that it makes a lot of sense that he's going to load up on picks and get as many swings as he can. So, yeah, I love this move for the Thunder. I think it's funny because they have amazing development staff in Oklahoma City too. So they're able to not only bring in these talented prospects, but then, you know, help them maximize their potential and reach their full potential. So yeah, I think they're going to be able to continue to kind of bring in these interesting prospects, work with them, and they should have a very talented team in a few years. And you kind of mentioned with Presti, the other interesting aspect of this is that this is kind of what happens when a GM, someone running an organization, has job security. You can afford to punt a few seasons. And granted, they've still been pretty competitive, which has been remarkable to see what they've been able to still, you know, the wins they've been able to come up with. But he basically said, look, we're just going to go all in on rebuilding. We're going to trade away every good veteran we have. We're going to bring in all of the picks, and this is going to be a long process. And you can do that when you have that kind of job security. So yeah, I love what the Thunder are doing. With Horford, it'll be interesting to me to see what he can bring to the Celtics next year, because he is going to be 35 years old. You know, last year in OKC, he averaged 14.2 points, 6.7 rebounds, a block and a steal. But he only played in 28 games. It was very clear they wanted to play the young guys and, you know, develop them. So how much does Horford have left in the tank? And how, I mean, for the Celtics, I agree. When I first saw the deal, I was like, man, you gave up the number 16 overall pick just to get off Kemba's contract and a second round pick. But really, for me, I guess it's too early to really bash the deal. It really depends what they do with that cap space and kind of what they can make of this deal, you know, in the next two off seasons, whatever they have money to spend. So we'll see what happens. But I was just shocked to see a trade this morning. I did not expect that. Usually, you know, it takes it's after the combine, later in the offseason, we start seeing trades.
Trades in the middle of the playoffs.
It's wild.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah, another big story in the NBA right now is what's going on with the Dallas Mavericks. There was the report in The Athletic that there was all this dysfunction in the front office. You had Bob Voulgaris apparently was the shadow GM, and there was all this different stuff. And, you know, apparently had rubbed Luka the wrong way. And it was really interesting to kind of see this all play out. Mark Cuban pushed back on that heavily, said it was total BS, and was very frustrated, said they hadn't reached out to him for comment. Then within 48 hours, Rick Carlisle leaves the organization and is now likely going to take a head coaching job somewhere else. Donnie Nelson was fired, according to sources. They said mutually parted ways, but sources have said he's been fired. I think The Athletic reported that. So right after that article, and props to Sam Amick and Tim Cato, because they were spot on. It sounded like there was dysfunction, and now you have the Mavericks looking for a head coach and a GM in a very pivotal summer where Luka has not won a playoff series yet. They want to make sure they have the right pieces around him to keep him happy. He's clearly a generational talent. He can sign an extension this offseason for over $200 million. So it's interesting to kind of see this summer what they're going to do, not only in terms of what pieces they're going to put around Luka, what happens with Porzingis, but who are they going to hire? And there was a report today that Dirk Nowitzki will be involved in the GM search. He's apparently, you know, taking on a bigger role with the organization. He'll help, you know, fill that role. Michael Finley is being mentioned as a possibility. He was something that's been in the front office for the Mavs for the last few years. He's a possibility apparently in the GM search. But it's a very interesting time for the Mavericks. What were your thoughts when you saw everything go down in that situation?
Yeah, I think, you know, for me, I have a tough time like with the blame game stuff at all. Anytime somebody's reporting it, credit to Cato and all the other people that are reporting on it. This is not a bash at any specific reporter. It's more or less just like, I have a hard time when you're not in somebody else's shoes and trying to like glean information off of that, whether it's from like other sources, because ultimately it feels like a lot of the time it's one-sided, or it's like you've got like an agent of a player, leaking stuff on purpose, and you hear these stories all the time. And so for me, I have trouble with like these sort of stories, just morally and ethically, just because I don't know. You don't know where this is coming from. You have no idea. A lot of times it's just sources. And yes, sources can be valid. I'm not denying any of that. Absolutely not. I credit their reporting and everything else. I just have trouble when people jump to conclusions on like, oh, this is the reason, or oh, this is the reason, or oh, X means X or Y means Y, because a lot of times that isn't really the case. And there are multiple things that lead up to decisions like this. So for me, it feels like there's a changing of the guard. They have this superstar in Luka Doncic. And they didn't really, I don't think, achieve expectations this year. I think they struggled early on, and there were some times where people were questioning, some of the methodology and some of the thinking and some of the stuff that was going on. And it felt like even in the playoffs, they had a really good grasp on that Clippers series and let it go.
Yeah.
Obviously, Luka getting hurt doesn't help, but I think Kendrick Perkins actually mentioned like, Rick Carlisle, why aren't you using Kristaps Porzingis? Like, he really wasn't utilizing him in the way that he was used in New York. And I'm not saying that's the reason. I don't want to like go to that, but there are some other things that I think people are just forgetting about generally about their situation. They have this superstar. Trey is in Atlanta now, conference semifinals, like doing his thing up against the Philadelphia 76ers the other night, putting up huge performances. And
DeAndre Ayton is in the conference finals.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It is crazy. Those teams, I think ultimately around them are much better than what Luka has.
Yeah.
I don't think that's something that we can totally say is on Luka, but at the same time, there is expectations. This is an expectation driven sport. Everybody has them. And I do think at some point in time, you just have to like look yourself in the mirror and be like, are we the best version of us that we can possibly be? What happened? Why did it happen? And it sounds to me like Mark Cuban was like, look, they weren't fully happy here. I would rather Rick Carlisle just come to my face and tell me they had a relationship previously. Sounds like Mark was okay with the decision. So to me, yeah, maybe there was a little bit of dysfunction. I think it may have been overplayed in my opinion. And I think some of this actually, just generally speaking, this happens with organizations. Like they've been there forever. You have to understand, like,
yeah,
think about being in a job for 20 years. Like there are always going to be times where you're like, man, I hate this part, or I don't like this part, or whatever. And those things, I think over time generally build up to a certain point where you're like, look, I got to go to amicably. I got to go to Mark and just be like, look, I'm not fully happy here. Feels like, I'm not getting the most out of this roster. And, you say your goodbyes and that's that. And so I think, like I said, I think it's been blown out of proportion a little bit. I think this happens. I just think people are shocked it's the Mavs, because the Mavs seemed like one of the organizations, like the Patriots, like the Spurs, that are just very quiet in what they do and how they do things. And that, I think, is the shocking part.
And the longevity. I mean, Rick Carlisle's been there for so long. And Mark Cuban is someone that doesn't change over his coaching staff. He doesn't change over the front office.
Very vocal about that.
Yeah, Donnie Nelson had been there for 24 years. So, clearly he believed in longevity and kind of being loyal to his people. So that's another reason why it was so shocking, I think, to see both gone in a matter of days. It was very surprising, because that just doesn't happen with an organization like the Mavericks. I will credit, I give Mark Cuban credit, because if there was dysfunction behind the scenes, he understands, hey, Luke is a generational talent. We have to maximize this window where he's one of the best players in the NBA. We don't know how long he's going to be here. That's the truth in today's NBA. So let's make sure we have the right pieces around him and the right staff that are going to put the right pieces around him. I do think he's being proactive and trying to address that. It was just shocking to see kind of the way it went down. And I will say, you mentioned the sources and kind of how that all transpired. I think it's difficult for me because I think, first of all, Sam and Tim, I think they're very credible. The Athletic is super credible.
Absolutely.
So you have to definitely consider the source. Like if it had been some random blogger or,
Sure.
someone with a track record of getting things wrong, that's one thing. But when it came from Sam and Tim, you're like, oh, wow, this is pretty crazy. And then I think there were just so many sources cited in that article. It seemed like sources coming from certain agents and like player camps. It seemed like there were other ones from the front office. There were just so many, and there were so many examples given, like, oh, there's a confrontation with Luka. There's the draft night where Vulgaris apparently went rogue and did his own thing, didn't listen to the scouts. And then there's him tinkering with the coaching staff. It just felt like they were so tapped in. And I think there was probably what happened. If I had to guess, I haven't talked to anyone. This is totally just me guessing.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think probably what happened was they heard one of those stories, or they heard from someone that was like, hey, this guy has a lot of power and some people aren't happy about it. And then they started digging and talked to different player camps and different people in the front office and coaches and stuff like that. And that's how the story probably came together, because it sounded like, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? I'm not sure if it's been clear yet if Bob's going to remain in Dallas. I don't really know. It's not really out there. There's been kind of conflicting reports on that, but it sounded like there were some people that were frustrated with his increasing role and increased role. And yeah, it'd be very interesting to see what happens. It's a very big offseason for this Mavericks team. So we'll see who they put in the GM role, who they hire as a head coach, and then what they end up doing this offseason. I think all eyes are going to be on Dallas to see what pieces they put around Luka. Are they going to trade Kristaps Porzingis, or are they going to utilize him differently, as you kind of mentioned? Nekias Duncan wrote a great article for us at basketballnews.com talking about here's what Porzingis is, here's what he isn't, and here's how he should be utilized. And if they're not going to utilize him that way, you might as well trade him to a different situation. Miami's a team that's come up. There's a few teams that have come up as possibilities. So it'll be interesting to see what Dallas does this offseason.
Yeah, it feels like a make or break offseason for keeping Luka happy, keeping the organization at bay. And if they don't make the right moves, like kind of what happens from here, it'll be very interesting to tell. But as you mentioned, I'm not knocking the sources or anything like that. I think when there's smoke, there's obviously something going on. But like, I don't really want to go too much deeper. But at the same time, there's like, I think when somebody else in the organization is talking to someone and they're like, well, man, he's, like, I just think about this in like a workplace environment or something. If you hear somebody complaining about somebody else, you almost like, even if you didn't think about it, then you're like, oh man, I'm kind of connecting the dots here. Like thinking about like how they do things and so I think once that starts happening, more people start buying into the belief that is the reason. And so I'm not, like I said, not knocking the sourcing. I think it's great, like that you have all these different people talking about it. But I find it also interesting that they were that open to just like discuss how they felt about it. And
that's what I was surprised by too, how public it was. Because I do think this happens in every organization. It just doesn't usually end up
in one big article reported by itself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the surprising part was. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll see what happens. I think everyone can attest to this too, and I want to try and relate it to like real life. Like somebody comes in new to a job and you've got all these people who's super tenured and know what they're doing and have been doing it the same way for 20 years. It's going to ruffle feathers. Like that's just going to happen. Like, so I don't know how much, like I said, is that over like, oh, he's out to get everybody and is out to do things differently and is out to like treat everybody horribly, which is like kind of how the article, I guess my only like issue with it is like, you don't know a lot of those like smaller details about it. And I honestly just wish you could have Bob, Mark, Donnie, and Rick Carlisle in a press conference together, like talking to each other, and you could just hear their hour-long conversation about what's going on, because that would give us all the information we need to know. Yeah. And it'd probably flush out a lot of this stuff anyways. To me, it's like, why can't you just all sit down and be like, hey, Bob, I don't like what you're doing. How do you fix it? How do we fix this? How do we come together and make this work? But
yeah, that's the hard part too. Like whenever you do talk about anonymous sources, so often people, especially when you're talking about like head coaches, players, I think they're typically media trained, so they won't say what they're actually thinking if it's on the record or publicly. But then if they can say something anonymously, then they're down to kind of open up about how they're really feeling about things, because they know it won't come back to them, or they hope it won't come back to them. But it's interesting, very interesting situation. But yeah, that article, it was when it broke, everyone was talking about it. I saw it all over Twitter. So I definitely want to talk about that whole situation. Let's get into some Top Shot talk. Actually, really quick, before we get to Top Shot, I do want to ask you, what are your predictions for tonight? We have 2 crucial game 6s that's coming up pretty shortly here. We have Hawks, Sixers, and we have Clippers, Jazz. Who are your picks for tonight? You don't need to give too many details. I'm just curious. Who do you got winning?
I'd love to pick the Jazz. I've been on the Jazz from like day one when Mitchell got there. So I'm a big believer in the team. I'm a big believer in Mitchell and everything else that they're doing. But I do feel like this is like that moment for Paul George. Like if he wants to cement himself as like a superstar player that people were questioning early on in the playoffs and all this stuff. And I do think the past 2 or 3 games, you've noticed a real big difference in the way that he's played. And he's just like commanding everything. Like they call it like point guard George, right? Or whatever, PG. But that's like what he's been doing. He's been taking the ball up the floor. He's been like playmaking for others. He's been doing some of the stuff that he used to do with the Indiana Pacers, which I think has instilled some confidence in this Clippers team and also instilled confidence in him to a point where I really think the Clippers should not lose this series. Do I think they lose the series? No. They should not lose the series? No. But could the Jazz obviously do things that they've been doing? Yeah, absolutely. I think the big thing that the series comes down to, not to go too long, Gobert. Is Gobert in the game? Is he making a defensive like presence? The first 2 games we saw Gobert dominate, I felt like, on both sides of the floor. He was getting rebounds on both ends of the floor. He was taking up space inside the lanes for Kawhi and Paul George. And then game 3, game 4, and game 5, you've seen the same thing. He's had to be pulled out of games early. He's getting into foul trouble. He's getting sucked out by Paul George and getting like kicked out to Reggie Jackson or wide open Luke Kennard.
Yeah.
It sucks because he's such a good defensive player. And sometimes I feel like in the playoffs, and this has been like a narrative that is like kind of developed over the past few years, like, can you play him in the playoff games? Because sometimes teams can really exploit the mismatches there and how teams play like small ball at this point. So it'll be very interesting, but Gobert, I think, is the X factor in this entire series.
Well, and Ty Lue is so good at making those adjustments. We saw it in Cleveland when they came back down 3-1. We saw it in this last series against the Mavericks where, and that's really the reason he got the job. Doc Rivers, the big knock on him was he didn't make enough adjustments, mid-series and in-game. So then they went out and got someone like Ty who can tinker like that. And, when they put Nick Batum in the starting lineup and started going small, it worked wonders for them. So that's continued to work. I mean, I think it's a big reason why Gobert has struggled a bit in this series. And he still has put up solid numbers and everything. Yeah. It's just not what we're used to seeing as far as defensive player of the year level impact. So I think it's tough for me. I've been going back and forth on both of these series. I have a really hard time picking. For Clippers Jazz, part of me wonders if Jackson going to keep knocking down shots like he has, because he's been great at times and there's times where he really struggles. So, that's a big thing for me. But then for me, I think what it comes down to is Donovan Mitchell was questionable for this game. He has a bad ankle. Mike Conley might not play. If he does play, which, I mean, I'm not sure. Later today, we'll probably know more. If he does play, then who knows how effective he's going to be. There's a lot of injuries on that side. Obviously, the Clippers are missing Kawhi Leonard, but last game we saw they can still do the things they want to do as far as
it's almost maximizes the team. Like, not to butt out here, but like it almost maximizes the way that like Paul George plays. I feel like Paul George has actually played better. He's more comfortable. It looks like he's more fluid. And that's no knock against Kawhi, because you want them both on the floor, I think. And it definitely creates like some serious mismatch problems. Nobody can really defend those two. But I think with Paul George, knowing that he's the guy and he has to be the go-to guy, he's used to that. He's done that throughout his career. And I think that's like super important that people really haven't like touched on a lot. And you make a great point about Ty Lue's adjustments. It felt like game 1 and game 2, Ty Lue was trying to figure out like what lineups work and what lineups don't. And it felt like at the end of game 2, I don't remember the exact point, but he had Reggie Jackson in and he had Kawhi and Paul George. And there were some moments there in like the third and fourth quarter where I was like, oh, like this could really be bad. Like if the Clippers just made some shots, like this game's over. It should be in the Clippers' hands. And so like, I think my sense since like the end of game 2 was like, this could be a closer series than people are going to make it out to be.
Yeah.
And they've started to hit their shots. They've started to feel more comfortable. They're starting to spread the ball around. And it does feel like if it's not Reggie Jackson, it's Terrence Mann. If it's not Terrence Mann, it's Luke Kennard. They have some guys that are stepping up in ways that I don't think any of us thought they would. And I think Ty Lue, like, credit to his role, because without Kawhi, that changes out your game plan a lot. And he, like, delivered flawlessly, I thought, in last game. Like, just the changes in rotations. Marcus Morris was, like, all over the place, it felt like. And Rudy Gobert was struggling against him for a little while there. And it felt like it felt like a changing of the guard at that point. So we'll see what happens. But I'm kind of leaning Clippers at this point based on the health concerns you mentioned, along with just how they've played the past 3 games. There's a lot of momentum in the Clippers' way.
Yeah, I'm going Clippers. And then in the other series, I have a really hard time.
That's harder than any series in the playoffs right now. I don't know about you, but I have a really hard time with this one.
Yeah, right now, I'm going to go Hawks, and I don't feel good about it, but I'm going to go Hawks because I feel like they're at home. This team's been playing so well. But then part of it too is you look at the Sixers and just the way that they've been struggling. The way that they lost those games is what really concerns me. And this is a team that we've seen in the past. Whenever things kind of gotten rough, they start pointing fingers and they have issues behind the scenes. So how do they respond after dropping those 2 huge leads and then losing those games? Doc Rivers, going back to how we talked about his issue last year with the Clippers, and not just last year, but his issue has been making those adjustments and being able to, change things mid-series. And we haven't really seen that. Ben Simmons has been missing. You see Philly fans are putting up posters around town with, like, missing posters and stuff. It's crazy to see how little he's impacting this series. So I'm going to go Hawks. I never thought that Atlanta would win the series whenever it first started. I thought this would be Philly easily. I was already talking about, Nets Sixers is going to be so interesting. Yet here we are. So I'm going Hawks, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but I think Atlanta's going to win this.
That's how I feel right now too. It feels like, once again, this is a series that felt like the Philadelphia series early on, and as it progressed, the Hawks just continued to play better, and the Philly, like, there's just more question marks surrounding Philly every time that I watch them play. Like, I just don't. It's very tough to see this Philadelphia 76ers team coming back from this in the way that they played, like you said, the past 2 games. And also, I do want to say, Hawks Nets will be really intriguing. Obviously, I think there's some question marks on health on the Nets side, but, like, the Hawks do have a lot of different players they can throw at a guy like Kevin Durant. And I do think that their depth and the talent on that roster was far undersold when the playoffs started. Like, they have a lot of guys that are extremely talented in playing the roles they need to play, like Bogey coming off the bench and doing what he can do. I think Trey has stepped up to a level that a lot of people didn't think he could get to. And then you throw in the fact of, like, these health concerns potentially, like maybe a DeAndre Hunter, maybe a Cam Reddish, maybe some of these other guys.
It sucks because Hunter had the surgery, so he's out till, like, next training camp. Because that would have been huge in this Brooklyn series.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, if he could have, like, been in this series, I think it makes it even more intriguing. And you're like, whoa, maybe, like, I'm picking the Hawks.
Because we don't know the Nets' health situation either. Like, is Harden going to be himself? Is Kyrie going to be missing games? Like, we don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah. So
who would have thought in, like, the beginning of the season when the Hawks were, out of the playoff picture, they're struggling. I mean, granted, they had a lot of injuries early on, so I don't think it was entirely Lloyd Pierce's fault. Nate McMillan has done an amazing job with that team, and he deserves all the credit for turning things around. But who would have thought back before the trade or before the All-Star break that we'd be talking about the Hawks potentially in the conference finals and maybe in the NBA finals? That's wild.
It's interesting to me because I think I remember, I may have been you or we have a group chat that we have. I think I want to say right after Trey got snubbed for the All-Star game, I was, like, all on the Trey bandwagon. I was like, this guy is going to, like, turn on the Jets. You just know, like, there's certain players in the league. It's like Damian Lillard, Trey Young. Like, there's just certain guys. They're, like, built in that capacity of, like, it's like FU mode. Like, and that's exactly what ended up happening with Trey through, like, the second part of the season and into this playoffs. And I feel like if he continues this, like, there's no way you can't at least give them a chance against any team that they're playing. And like I said, I think just overall, John Collins, dude's been a monster. Like, off the bench, wherever role he's playing, he has been really effective and fairly efficient. And he definitely gives them that, like, he's that one spark off the bench or on the team. Like when he has a massive dunk, it just like there's like a different energy level. So
Yeah,
I like the Hawks. I think the Hawks get there, and I think the Nets. Obviously, we kind of. I would say we both kind of feel the same way there. I don't know, but
I predict
we'll look at those.
Hawks Nets at this point. But no, it's
Yeah.
funny. Last thing on this, and then we'll kind of talk some Top Shot and open some packs here. But you mentioned the Trae Young stuff. Yeah, I remember that in our group chat. I wrote an article about this actually at basketballnews.com. So Trae was a starter on the All-Star team last year. He got 2.8 million fan votes, which was the most of any East backcourt player. The only guards that had more fan votes than Trae last year were Luka and LeBron. Oh, I'm sorry, Luka and James Harden. They're the only guards that had more votes. So, and then this year, and then also last year, he had 65 player votes, which was the third most of any East backcourt player, and the second most media votes. This year, with All-Star votes, he dropped from 2.8 million to 990,000. He dropped from 60, which was sixth among East back. And that's the third of the narrative of the season, which would be another interesting aspect of the Hawks series potentially. But he had 20 player votes, which was 11th among East guards. So he went from 65 player votes last year, the third most, to 20 player votes. And that means that players felt there were 10 East backcourt players more deserving of the All-Star team than Young. Jaylen Brown, Ben Simmons, Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, Malcolm Brogdon, RJ Barrett, like all these guys got more votes than Trae. And now looking back, I mean, and granted, that team was struggling.
They were struggling.
Wasn't playing as well either.
Yep.
But wow, I mean, the way he turned things around, you're right. He kind of went into FU mode. I'm going to prove everyone wrong.
Yeah, and that's what I love about players like that is it's almost like a book. Like you can read exactly what's going to happen. It's just like Dame Lillard. It's the same thing. He does the exact same thing. When he feels like he's slighted, there's a different level and energy that he plays with, and I love it. So yeah, credit to Trae. I do want to like make sure that he gets his proper due, because I do think, actually, I think it was you or someone in our group chat that was like, there's a lot of people that don't like Trae right now because he was playing poorly and the team wasn't playing well. And I think he had some comments in the media. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like,
well, there was the report that John Collins and him got into it, during a film session. Like he was making some comments. There was that's not real basketball. You're drawing fouls. Like, and the All-Star voting reflected that. People were frustrated. And I think, and we saw during the, playoffs, Trae's kind of embraced that villain role, like shushing the crowd, bowing whenever they're all clapping.
It's great. I love it.
The NBA needs that. They love, I mean, you have to have a good villain, and I love that he's embracing it, and it's been fun to watch, man. He's been killing it. So tonight's gonna be fun. I definitely want to get some playoff talk in there, because I'm really excited for these games. It's gonna be a great night, and that's why we moved the show up, because we didn't want to compete with these great playoff games. You and I want to be watching them, and we don't want people have to choose, hey, we're going to watch this show or playoffs. So we'll get back to our normal time eventually, but we're probably going to be doing shows a bit earlier going forward until the playoffs are over, just so that you guys don't have to choose what you're watching. But let's talk some Top Shot now. I have a pack here to open. We also have a pack to give away. The way we're going to give the pack away is we're going to actually open it here on the show. And then if you retweet the episode from my Twitter account, we're going to tweet the episode out, and I'll put it in the tweet saying, here's the tweet to retweet. If you retweet it, then we're going to choose someone in the next 48 hours to give the entire pack to. So whatever moments we draw here on the show, we'll send them to your account, and we will do that in the next 48 hours. But let's open this pack first. We're going to open up the giveaway pack last. So I have a pack to open. Oliver has one open, and then we're going to open the giveaway one last. So stick around for that, and then definitely make sure to enter. Oliver, while I open up these packs, or this pack here, what are your thoughts on kind of what Top Shot's been doing for the last few weeks?
They deserve 10 million points of credit on the way that they have changed course. I think there are a lot of people that were very fearful of how things were going. Obviously, the market was down a little bit, and there was just like some communication stuff that felt like was kind of lost. And they admitted and owned up to it. Ever since the Master Cool Cats thing, it seems like there's been this really, really positive momentum with Top Shot. And it starts with obviously like the playoff packs that they announced. They were extremely plus EV. I think that always helps when you can get your money back on a pack and feel like you won something out of it that's valuable or fun or whatever the case may be. So they've done a great job with that. The holo icon drop was a huge success from all indications. I was not eligible for it. I didn't go for it, and I'm fine with that. And I think more people are coming to the realization that, this is the way it's going to be. So you either mold to that or you don't. And I'm fine with what I'm doing right now. Like we discussed the gripes a little bit last week about how I probably have spent more on one moment than an account that has a collector score that is eligible for a holo drop. But I don't mind that. Look, the way that they want people to collect is the way they want them to collect. And I've come to the realization that ultimately we need to be able to at least see some form of you buy X and you get this, and that correlation needs to be there. And I think they're doing a really good job at that. So holo icon drop was a huge success. I'm looking to try and get some of the moments out of those holo icon drops, but they are extremely expensive right now, which is great because
it's a good thing.
Moving forward, it feels like packs are going to be more valuable again. And the pendulum was here last month, and now it's coming down and it's starting to come back the other way like it was not in February. I don't think they ever want to get to that point, but they want it in the middle, right? You want to be able to get value out of these packs and feel like you got something important. At the same time, all collectors need to understand hey, these are the parameters. This is what you need to do. And it's really cool. Even the showcase quest they announced the other day, and sorry, I'm going on a little bit, but the showcase quest they announced for Donovan Mitchell. So they bumped up the prices a little bit of the Donovan Mitchell rare moments. They bumped up the prices on some of the throwdown moments because there's this showcase quest. And I think they're going to just start doing more of these to the point where the market isn't going up and down so much and so rapidly. They're going to start doing them so that, the values just kind of stay at that point. People are going to want to hold on to moments longer if they know that maybe their moment's going to be included in a quest down the road. And so I think that's what they've done a really good job at, is just listening to people, understanding what's going on. And overall, I'm just very impressed by the way it's been the past few weeks.
I agree. Yeah. So real quick, we have Killian Hayes, 35,000 out of 40,000. We have Rashawn Holmes, 22,610 out of 40,000, and a TJ McConnell, 32,745 out of 40,000. So not bad there. Killian Hayes. Cool. I'm a big fan of Killian Hayes. I think he's going to be very good in a few years. You just got to be patient with him. Oliver, actually, you know what? Why don't I open up while I already have it here? I'm sharing my screen.
Sure.
Let's give this is the giveaway pack here. So we're going to open this up. Again, I'm going to tweet it out. Make sure you guys all go retweet it. And then we're going to pick someone in the next 48 hours to win this pack here. So let's see what the pack winner gets.
LeBron, LaMelo, LeBron.
I like it. I like the energy. Davis Bertans, 32,814 out of 40,000. Can you hear the music?
I cannot hear the music.
Okay.
I'll try to put the music on mine.
Yeah, I screwed that up. I'm going to mute it, though, since you can't hear it. Might as well.
LeBron.
So, yeah, 32,000.
Let's
All
see.
right, LeBron
what do we have
time.
here? What do we have?
Pacers 3. Sabonis. 31,159 out of 40,000.
That's a great moment.
That's a great moment.
Almost as good as the Anthony Simons wedgie.
That was J.E. Skeets excited about that one, I'm sure. I know.
Oh, yeah.
I saw him tweeting about it.
Let's see.
All right.
This last one here. Ooh, Donovan?
Donovan, yeah. 12,803 out of 40,000.
This is a filthy block, too.
That is insane. I love it.
On Halliburton, too. I'm sorry, Halliburton. Is that Halliburton? I can barely see. Yeah, it is. Yeah,
yep.
Okay.
That's a great block.
Welcome to the league moment, right?
I'm surprised Tyrese Halliburton didn't use his Top Shot connections to get this blocked and make sure that they didn't make this moment. But not a bad pack. So you get an all-star and Donovan Mitchell, 2 all-stars, Sabonis and Mitchell, and then Bertans is a solid player too. So yes, we will give this pack away here in the next 48 hours. Make sure you guys retweet that tweet, and we'll pick someone from there. And then Oliver, you have a pack to open as well. So let's go ahead
will
and
share my screen. Do this. Can you see that?
yeah, yep, we are good.
Perfect.
There we go. All right.
You
You're
don't
gonna
hear the
get
audio, do you?
I do not. That's okay
Cool.
though. You're
All
going to
right.
get a LaMelo right now. It's going to be the middle one, and it's going to be LaMelo. I'm calling
We
my
talked
shot.
about it on the show. None of us have ever
Right.
pulled a LaMelo from a pack.
We had 4 people here that are huge collectors, and none of us got LaMelo.
176 Taco. Hey,
Oh,
that's
great.
cereal.
Yeah.
Okay,
Wow.
Taco. Okay. It's almost like he's in slow motion, but I'm down.
Yeah, it really is.
Look at this. Oh my God. This is like Shaq-esque. This is hilarious.
That's a great moment. So go left then. Don't go middle, because I'm telling you, middle one is LaMelo, and I want to build suspense.
Tobias. Okay. This is actually a nice moment. I like this moment.
Will Ben Simmons ever have a jumper top shot moment?
He needs to shoot with his other hand.
That's a great. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say that, and that he kind of wasn't coached up the right way. But all right, here's your LaMelo.
Come on. Zach LaVine.
I tried to say it with confidence and
I
speak it
know.
into existence, and it didn't work. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's a nasty done. I like that. Yeah. Whew. I like that.
LaVine is so good, but I mean, how many guys out there are top? He's probably the best dunker in the NBA. I think we all agree on that. Aaron Gordon's up there too, obviously. But like when LaVine's been in dunk contests, he almost always wins. He's incredible. How many guys out there are one of the best athletes and best dunkers in the NBA, but then also one of the best 3-point shooters and scorers in the NBA? Like his genes and his athleticism is incredible. He's a freak. I love that.
So true. So these just came out, the Lillard playoff moment challenge. So
Nice.
Those just came out. Fairly low price there. LaMelo Ball is interesting. I just wanted to kind of surf through this. This is one I've been eyeing for a while. I'm tempted. I'm very tempted. Emmanuel Quickly, MGLE. This is a very low price for a rookie MGLE moment, and it's actually kind of a nasty moment.
He's so good too. He's so much fun to watch.
So just to give some people insight into like how Top Shot works, if they haven't seen our stream in a few weeks or whatever, but like this is kind of how the marketplace looks right now. And I really love like what I enjoy most about going through the marketplace is trying to find like moments that are undervalued or moments that I feel like have a big gap in between the next lowest ask. That's like my biggest thing that I look for now. I know it sounds weird and it shouldn't all be value based, but like I love this Quickly moment. Look, it's $299, and the one listed second lowest is $22 higher. So it feels like this moment is a good buy right now because the low ask is $22 off of the like will increase the floor by $22. So I think it's important to like give people insight into like what people look at Top Shot. Everybody has their own opinions, and this is not financial advice. Don't take it. But there's a lot of good things happening within Top Shot, and I think something that I've taken away, I'm in a bunch of Discord groups, and we chat about this all the time. Like people will send through moments and be like, whoa, this seems like a good deal. What do you guys think? And it's cool to have a community like that where people are chatting about certain moments or buying moments when the playoffs are going on. I've seen so many times playoff pumps happen. So this Kevin Durant moment, I feel like it's gone like the Kevin Durant to 7,500. It's gone from like $200 to $400 back to $200. Now it's like $250 or whatever. And it's just fun to watch. And I think, like I said, it's fun collecting on Top Shot because of all these different reasons. And they've done a really good job with how they're doing things. And obviously, these are the new 2 challenges. Just so people have seen these, they just got announced the other day. Hollow Icon Challenge 7. This one's KD. This is the first KD Hollow. It's a massive, massive moment on Top Shot to have KD's first moment. Obviously, this is going to cost you a very pretty penny to complete. And then the next big one, another massive moment, LeBron James play-in moment for the winner. I mean, look at this moment. That's
a great moment.
This is an insane one. This will be one of the higher valued ones on Top Shot.
We were watching that game we did a watch party at Basketball News where it was, a number of our staffers. I think Atan Thomas was on there. It was a lot of fun. And that moment, everyone just went nuts.
Yeah. On Curry, I mean, like, you can't get any better. And he's pointing to the eye.
That's a great moment.
That's an amazing moment. And certainly one, like I said, I actually, Alex, to be honest with you, and I'm being transparent with everybody, I owned 4 of these MGLE moments yesterday. And once they announced that this was a LeBron challenge, I couldn't resist selling them. I wanted to try and buy all of them, and then I looked at all the prices, and I was like, I just don't have like $4,000. I don't have the extra $4,000. So I was like, all right, I'll sell all the moments, and I was very lucky. Like, I sold this Sadiq Bey for like a couple $100 more than what I bought it for because it ended up being in this challenge. So, not to say, like I said, once again, not financial advice, but I really advise, if your moment hasn't gone like super high in value or you appreciate the moment, keep it and hold it, because you never know when these things are going to be inserted into challenges or into showcases where you can potentially get a LeBron moment for a really good deal, seemingly.
Yeah. That's been my approach. I've been holding, probably to a fault. I've been probably holding too many, too often, but that's been my approach. I'm thinking long-term with this. So I've been holding on to a ton of different moments, but I'm excited about where things are headed too. It seems like they've been doing a great job in the last few weeks. So it's been fun to kind of see all the different things that they're adding and different things that they're doing. I didn't qualify for the holo drop either, but it is what it is, maybe in the future, but I like that they're rewarding some of the top collectors and people that have put so much time and energy and money into this. So that is good to see. But we appreciate everyone for hanging out with us. I know we got some playoff games to watch. So thanks everyone for making time. And it's going to be so much fun. Both these games are going to be great. Part of me hopes that we just get 2 Game 7s. That would be amazing. But we'll see if that happens. But thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll be back next week. See you guys.